You've likely encountered this claim before. Humans can only access 10% of their brain, while the remainder of our cognitive capacity remains dormant. It's a widely circulated myth with various origins. But the general concept appears to stem from a mistaken notion that 90% of the cerebral organ consists of glial cells, which simply serve to connect neurons. However, as neurologists have progressively gained a more comprehensive understanding of the brain's characteristics, most have dismissed this concept as nothing more than a fabricated story perpetuated by popular media productions, like Lucy and Limitless. In actuality, throughout the course of a day, humans can indeed utilize 100% of their brain, but we seldom access all of its capacities at the same time. The brain is a formidable organ that consumes more energy than any other part of the body. Therefore, efficiency is essential to prevent exhaustion or mental burnout. To avoid squandering resources, the brain gives priority to certain regions that tend to be accessed more frequently by the individual. Altogether, it's a resource-intensive interconnected network filled with hundreds of potential connections, enabling a broad spectrum of behaviors. But as humans establish routines, the brain begins prioritizing specific neurological pathways to boost productivity, while other regions operate more intermittently. While this approach conserves energy during everyday tasks, over-reliance leads to reduced flexibility and the development of habits, good or bad. Habits can be challenging and frustrating to break, but the brain remains adaptable. With some dedication, it can effectively acquire new capabilities. However, even if the 10% myth is inaccurate, the underlying idea that humans aren't reaching their full potential rings true. Neuroplasticity is a widely discussed term within brain research communities. It describes the brain's capacity to reorganize itself and establish new neural connections, enabling us to learn new skills. From an evolutionary perspective, this helps the brain compensate for any area that might have lost functionality due to illness or injury. This process doesn't occur automatically, though, and requires neurons to be repeatedly stimulated through performing activities, which in turn allows new pathways to be reinforced. So activating a broader range of connections by experimenting with new activities or practicing established skills can enhance your neuroplasticity, resulting in accelerated learning and increased flexibility. Practice makes perfect is more than just an old saying, as repeated performance corresponds with higher neurological connectivity. For instance, a professional guitarist absorbs new riffs faster than a beginner because their brain dedicates considerably larger sections to hand movements than an average person's brain. But if cycling through the same patterns is most efficient, what would be the advantage of employing 100% of the brain? Well, while there's no miracle drug capable of unlocking someone's hidden potential, utilizing all of the brain's regions should lead to a substantially improved lifestyle. The brain is divided into left and right hemispheres, which demonstrate asymmetrical control over the body. While writing, a right-handed student would engage the left side of their brain and vice versa. Recent studies indicate that a person's preferred hand has more to do with their spinal development than any neurological factors. However, physical coordination can be improved by performing exercises that require the brain to alternate between hemispheres. But the brain's division accounts for far more differences than simply movement. The right-sided hemisphere is associated with creativity, intuition, and holistic thinking, while the left side manages logic, reasoning, and analytical skill. As a statistician and an artist prioritize their left and right hemispheres respectively, that portion of their brain could establish dominance. But even a mathematician's creative hemisphere will never be entirely out of commission. People simply prefer to use a well-oiled machine over a less familiar alternative, so they tend to stick with what they know. The brain operates in waves, and depending on the circumstances, one hemisphere will take control and approach a task with a particular attitude. If the right side prevails, the person will choose a more holistic perspective and concentrate on the whole rather than the individual components. Alternatively, a left-sided analytical approach attempts to understand the whole by carefully examining the separate elements or finer details. The two hemispheres do work together, but the faster a brain can shift between analytical and holistic thinking, the more sophisticated, creative, and likely effective their thinking becomes in truth. The last thing anyone should desire is for the brain to literally activate 100% of its neurons simultaneously, as overstimulation would probably trigger a seizure. If you're aiming to truly maximize your full cognitive potential, some experts believe that brain synchronization is the key. Most situations involve both logical and emotional components, but humans tend to emphasize one over the other. When both hemispheres function on equal footing, an entirely new dimension of thinking becomes possible, one that perceives a complete picture without overlooking any specific details. With both halves complementing each other, humans should experience an increase in self-awareness and intentional behavior, allowing for habits to be broken and alternative neural patterns to be created. In short, it should become easier to learn new things. It's generally accepted that creativity and innovation peak during our youth, primarily because children lack the fear or knowledge that a goal might be illogical or impossible. A child's still developing brain absorbs information at an incredible pace. But in the late 19th century, psychologist William James theorized that by the age of 30, a person's character is set like plaster and will never soften again. Sadly, later research lowered the threshold to 25, emphasizing that change becomes more difficult once stubborn patterns are firmly established. However, a well-balanced brain unlocks enhanced learning, allowing for unfamiliar concepts to be picked up at a rapid pace and problems to be analyzed from a broader range of perspectives. By definition, innovation requires fresh connections to be formed between neurons. But that's only achievable when a human is tapping into 100% of their network. Another benefit of a synchronized brain is a reduction in anxiety and fear. In and of itself, stress is not inherently negative and serves as a signal that danger is or could be approaching. But when a situation arises that appears to offer no way out, stress transforms into anxiety and emotion that can be paralyzing. However, heightened awareness due to brain synchronization would reveal more potential pathways that can be explored for solutions, which should decrease fear. Fear correlates negatively with our understanding of the world around us. Therefore, a person efficiently using 100% of their brain should be calmer and more composed. With some exceptions, most humans have an underdeveloped right side of their brain, the hemisphere less likely to change as people age. That's largely because most careers reward structure over creativity, but there are countless exercises designed specifically to reactivate the right hemisphere. If you're interested in painting or writing short stories, dedicate just a few minutes every day to practice, and over time, creative thoughts and ideas will start to flow more naturally. Eventually, you should notice that your thought processes are more flexible and varied, even in everyday situations, as you explore more and more of your brain's potential. So although there aren't any special shortcuts or drugs that instantly activate 100% of your brain, despite what certain movies suggest, the hypothetical benefits would be far less dramatic than portrayed by those films. We needn't feel as though we're wasting brain power that's permanently locked away from us, because a well-balanced brain is very achievable if you're prepared to routinely break away from routine. By regularly diversifying and challenging yourself, you can clear the dust from even the most neglected cognitive corners. And the rewards of a well-balanced brain are definitely worth the effort. Don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating what-if scenarios and mind-expanding explorations.